What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 19 of Lobbing Scorchers. This is Ari Lillianwall. I got producer Noah here with me. Noah, say what's up to the people.
What's up, people?
We got a great show for you here this evening. We've got another dub pod for you, another playoff dub pod, and a playoff series dub pod. So very special occasion, first playoff series dub pod in the history of Lobbing Scorchers. So good to make some more history once again. We're going to be talking about the Seattle Sounders and their 1-0 match 3 victory over FC Dallas, which advances them on to the Western Conference semifinals of the MLS Cup Playoffs. A 2-1 series victory. Seattle 2-0 in match 1. FC Dallas 3-1 in match 2 in the thriving metropolis of Frisco, Texas. And then a 1-0 victory for the Seattle Sounders in match 3 to close it out. And the playoff journey churns onward. So we're going to dive into that match. We're going to be previewing the semifinals matchup with LAFC, which that's a tasty one, how that worked out. That's going to be a good game. So we'll be previewing that. And then we're gonna pull up the old bracket. We're going to do some picks on what we think is going to happen in these semifinal series in both conferences. And then I think that'll be just about a wrap. Does that sound good, Noah?
That sounds beautiful.
All right. Yeah. Well, first, I guess let us just vibe on this playoff series dub. You know, playoff series dubs, they don't always come around every year. They didn't come around for Seattle last season. Seattle's thankfully had a lot of them in recent years, but I think everyone is glad to be back in the dub column after missing the playoffs last year. And they've given themselves a really good puncher's chance at making an MLS Cup run here. The Sounders are the highest remaining seed in the Western Conference as the number 2 seed after St. Louis City SC crashed out famously.
Fraudulent.
So they're going to host, however long they stay in the playoffs on this west side of the bracket, they're going to be hosting. They're hosting LAFC on November 26th in the semifinals, and then if they are able to make it past LAFC, they'll be taking on either Houston Dynamo FC or Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts. So they have the path to MLS Cup in the Western Conference goes through Lumen Field, and that's very significant. If they do make it to MLS Cup, they might be guaranteed to be traveling.
They are guaranteed.
Yeah, they are
because
because Atlanta crashed out. So they would have to travel if they make it, but to make it, they're hosted. So it's a good job to put yourself in that position. That's really all you can ask. I mean, I'm sure they would have liked to finish higher on the Supporter Shield table, and they could have had a chance to host MLS Cup, but that not being the case, the path is set up quite nicely for them to at least get there. So that's all a positive. Let's talk about this game. 1-0 victory. Albert Rusnak with another goal, 36th minute game winner. Albert Rusnak making a solid case to come back to this team and man the 10 next year. We were talking about it before the playoffs and like how likely it was that Albert Rusnak would be coming back. And my take on it was that I kind of wanted to see what the playoffs looked like. He hadn't gotten all that much of a run at that spot. He did down the stretch, and that kind of became the first choice lineup. But there wasn't really that much of a sample to judge that on. So I wanted to see a few more games. I got to say, it's looking pretty nice. I'm coming around to the idea that he should come back and be a centerpiece of this team again next year.
Especially with Nico leaving, it's going to be nice to have.
Well, right, but it's like the whole question is, with Nico leaving, is Rusnak the replacement, or do you take a swing, bring somebody in from the outside? And that's sort of, I think that's the debate that the front office brass is having and is going to have during the off season. And the playoff returns so far with Albert Rusnak have been strong. Mm-hmm. I like what I'm seeing.
And pre-playoff as well.
Yeah, he looked good down the stretch too. So that's good to see. I knew that it was going to be tough sledding for FC Dallas in this game when I saw their starting lineup. They got pretty decimated down the stretch of the season and into the playoffs. They lost Alan Velasco in match 1, and then they lost Jesus Ferreira before this game. I don't remember when he got injured exactly in match 2 in the thriving metropolis of Frisco, Texas, but he exited that game, and I didn't know that there was that his status for match 3 was in doubt, but clearly it was, because the starting lineups came out and there was no Jesus Ferreira. They also lost Marco Farfan and Giovanni Jesus, so they were down 4 of their main guys, including their 2 best attacking players. They were playing this match without a striker, basically. They had Paul Arriola at right back, who is not a right back. So Nico Estevez, he was freestyling. And they made a pretty decent game of it, all things considered. Respect to FC Dallas. They gave Seattle pretty much all they could handle given the personnel that was at their disposal. If you look at the stats at this game, it was quite one-sided. 1-0 was arguably unflattering for how the match actually played out. I mean,
Yeah.
Seattle ends with 1.5 xG, which is solid if unspectacular. FC Dallas had 0, which is, I mean, that is you don't see a clean goose egg all that often. They didn't have a shot until the 89th minute, which was a header that was right at Stefan Frei. They just had nothing in attack, and you have to credit Seattle's defense. We're going to talk about that for holding them down that much, but they also just they didn't have their guys, and Schmetz actually. He acknowledged that after the game. He came into his press conference. Schmetz usually doesn't give an opening statement. PR always asks him, Schmetz, do you want to give an opening statement? He always says no, straight to questions. But after this game, he did give an opening statement, and the crux of it was basically respect to FC Dallas. They actually they messed with us pretty good in this series. They beat us pretty good in game 2, and then they put in a effort-filled shift in match 3, even if it didn't result in any attacking fireworks. So that was just tough. I don't like playing these games with the other team not at full strength. It takes some of the intrigue out of it. When I saw that lineup, I was like, all right, well, they're going to have a hard time scoring in this game, and they ended up putting up a goose egg XG. So go figure. The goal came in the 36th minute. Rusnak with the finish, but that play was all about the dime from JP.
Yeah, it was.
What a pass. Seattle wins the ball in the attacking end, and the Brazilian just hits an inch-perfect dime. Those passes are so hard to wait, especially on turf. Not easy to thread that in there where the goalkeeper can't come out to claim it, and Rusnak can just run right onto it. And he doesn't overhit it, doesn't go out of bounds. I mean, that's just a sick dime.
It was a great play by Roldan as well to just kind of wait and watch and see that, Rusnak was there, and then both of them just clearly having the good enough chemistry to stop, wait, and then kind of just let JP make a pass.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Good point. Yeah, it was a beautiful goal. And I thought Seattle overall, it was a pretty strong attacking performance, even though they only got the 1 goal. Having the 1 goal lead late in this game was not a pleasant viewing experience. I said on the preview show that if at all possible, you would want to avoid that exact scenario where you're coming down to the waning moments of the match and you're only up 1-0 and you haven't gotten the second goal. They were playing with fire with that, and that was what was going through my head the whole time I was watching that. Was that this is the exact scenario that I was talking about trying to avoid. But they managed to see it out. And really, I never felt that it was all that much in doubt. You just never know when a fluke goal can happen. And they would have been straight to pens if that had happened. So thankfully, they avoided that. Nuhu was fine in this game. Anyone who got a commentary or takes on how Nuhu did? He did fine. All right, he didn't do anything stupid. He did one. He had one stupid play where he was making a run down the flank and he was just charging. He could have laid the ball off, probably, arguably, a couple of times, and then he just took a way too heavy of a touch, and then it bounced off the defender and then back into him, and he just kept going, ran onto it, still didn't lay it off, and then eventually I think he lost the ball. But other than that,
other than what he does every single game that makes him ineffective as a wingback,
he did it one time, and other than that, knew he was pretty much fine. So I don't really want to hear it. I think my main reason for bringing that up is just to highlight the fact that they won this series. So the Nuhu debate didn't end up. It didn't end up affecting anything. Like, they came out of it fine. He was fine in match 3. That performance to me is pretty much like what the baseline of a Nuhu game pretty much is.
Mid.
He's not as, I mean, what's mid about helping the defense?
I don't think
hold
there's
them to
anything
0 XG.
I'm glad we can get into this one now, because it's not that he's a bad defender, which we've both talked about and agree that his one-on-one defending is elite. It's just he's a wingback. So if you're a wingback, what are you and you have no attacking prowess at all, what are you doing? Like, what at least learn or have the confidence in your ability to pass and make decisions. It's like you've been playing professional soccer in this specific team in this specific position for how many years now? 3, 4?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that.
What is he doing?
I'm not gonna say that I don't understand the frustration with his shortcomings in attack. I just think that people need to reassess their expectations based on what his skill set actually is.
Yeah,
and
but that's
what he does do well, and it doesn't have to be like 8-day controversy every time he makes a mistake. All the discourse really went out of whack with the game he had in the second game. Anyway,
it's just silly to me where if he played even half as much in the attacking side as RBW did, like, he would be probably like defender of the year. You know what I mean? Like, he'd be disgusting. But like, I see it as he is taking the spot. He's taking the starting role of a wingback, and he is not a wingback. And I don't know why we didn't move on him back in the day. And so I'm going to be highly critical of him, not because I don't like him as a player, and not because I don't acknowledge the incredible positives that he brings to the team, which is a lot of that last-ditch defending that saves our ass a lot of the time, which is I will always acknowledge. But in the system that we're playing, we should have a player that fits into the system, not just a player who's a wild card and kind of a shit show half the time. I don't know. That's my take.
Half the time.
Okay. 60% of the time.
Yeah. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with the notion either that this team could benefit from a player with a skill set such more akin to a Jovan Jones or a Brad Smith. But that's just that's not the reality of the situation at the moment. He was a key part of why this team had an elite defense this year. And if they're going to win MLS Cup this year, it's going to be on the strength of this defense, I think. I mean, I don't, especially in a game which we're going to talk about against LAFC, where, you're going against some bad dudes. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but like, if you ask me, like, when you're playing a team that has Dennis Bouanga, if I'm taking Nuhu out there or RBW, I mean, I'm taking Nuhu to try and slow down Bouanga.
Absolutely.
That's your best shot.
Yeah. And I don't have any disagreement with that. I just want to say, like, going forward into the future and the way that we should have developed this role in the past, it's like, shit, Nuhu would be a great holding defender.
You, I think you speak for definitely a vocal segment of the fan base who, I see the points. I just happen to disagree.
Yeah, and I don't want to be a hater either. I'm not a hater. I still love Nuhu. I'm still rooting for his success.
You sound like a hater. No, I'm just kidding.
But I don't get on me. Don't get on me, Nuhu lovers. I see you buying those bootleg T-shirts.
So yeah, that's a wrap on the best of 3 series. Shout out, rest in peace, single elimination from here on out.
Thank God.
Now that it's all said and done, yeah, I mean, I'll stick to my original take. If you're gonna do a multi-game series, I'd rock the home and away 2-leg series, but I didn't think it was as apocalyptically bad, this 3-game stuff, as some people might have. It's just it's not how I would do it, but I thought it was pretty much fine. Glad it's over. Single elimination it's certainly a lot more exciting. I definitely felt, especially with this Seattle-Dallas series, by the third match, you're like, okay. Third game in a row, same team. I'm just about done with this squad.
Yep.
I imagine the players were quite sick of each other as well. So I guess we can just be thankful that that's only for the opening round, and that, like, what if this LAFC series was three game series?
I would crawl in a hole and die.
I wouldn't want to deal with that.
I do want to know one thing about the broadcasts, just because I think this was kind of funny that Apple was the one that pushed this 3-game series. I allegedly, adding an allegedly because I don't have a source on that. I just have seen tweets about it. So allegedly. And then they sent their A broadcast team to go to a Messi versus New York City FC exhibition game.
You didn't watch the Noche d'Or?
I did, because Talis Magno is my goat.
Oh, okay.
I'm a huge Magno fan, but and then they sent the B crew to the actual playoff game with Seattle, and you didn't even see Seattle score. They were playing a replay of like a header that was off the mark, and then they just cut back, and it's Rusnak celebrating in the corner, and I'm like, what the hell are we doing here?
Yeah, people were not happy about that, rightfully so. I mean, it's pretty tough. Soccer goals don't happen that often. So if you miss one, that's not it's not ideal.
Like, folks, you've had the entire season to learn how to like pace this.
That's unfortunate.
It was bad. It was bad.
Hopefully they learned from that one, because there was a lot of angry tweets about that, and deservedly. Missed it was the only goal of the game. It's the only goal of the game. So, another playoff dub in the books, for however tough this season was at times, and it was very tough, especially on the attacking side of the ball. But the fact that they got the 2 seed, won a playoff series, hosting rights through MLS Cup for however long in the playoffs, I think you got to give them some credit. They've given themselves a chance at winning this trophy, and I just think for what we thought, where we thought this season was headed at certain points, like it's kind of a sick bit that they've managed to get to this point. It's definitely not all that similar to the 2016 turnaround, because they were so down and out that season. They were never that down and out this season, but it's a similar type vibes of a regular season that kind of created low expectations, I think, in a way. I don't think many people saw them as cup contenders, and now they're cup contenders. So it's just kind of funny how that panned out. We were kind of joking about that earlier in the season, like, things are so tough right now. They're not scoring goals. That probably means that they're going to win MLS Cup.
Yeah.
So,
it is quite funny too that in a regular year where maybe LAFC doesn't choke in CCL, doesn't qualify, whatever happens, they don't drop a bunch of points. St. Louis doesn't get insanely lucky. Sporting doesn't have a meltdown in the first half of the season. Like, Sounders could have easily been on the edge of the playoff line and still be cooking down the stretch. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, good point. Next up, LAFC, so let's talk about that. That's a matchup that has a lot of history in the MLS Cup playoffs. We all famously remember the 2019 season when Seattle traveled to what is now known as BMO Stadium and beat LAFC in the Western Conference Finals. And that preceded their second MLS Cup title, which they won when they beat Toronto FC. That was... Can we just relive that game for a second?
Oh, God.
I mean, I still call that I think it was the best win in club history.
That felt better than the Cup.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the highest stakes. It wasn't like the biggest win. But in terms of the performance compared to outside expectations and then the final result, I still have it as top of the list. I was at that game in LA, and I think I've talked about this before, but I was pretty sure that they were going to lose. LAFC that year was insane. I mean, at the time, they were the best MLS team of all time statistically.
I still think that team is the best of all time.
I think there's at least a very good argument that they are. Plus 48 goal differential.
Disgusting.
Carlos Vela, that was the year that he had 34 goals, 15 assists, MVP easily.
Yep.
And I just, it's funny. I have kind of similar feelings going into the game this time around, in that just when I look at their team, there was just so much firepower to the point where pretty much as any MLS team I've watched since Messi and the Barca boys, they would get in these zones where they looked unstoppable. They looked like they were playing a different sport. Seattle had a very good team that year. Obviously, they wound up winning MLS Cup, but I mean, I was very not optimistic about that matchup. I was making the trip down for the game, and I was like, they're probably just gonna lose. LAFC is too good. They're gonna just win MLS Cup easily. And then LAFC scored first, like 20 minutes into the game. Atuesta, I believe, had the free kick to make it 1-0. And I remember when that happened, I was just like, Jesus Christ. Okay, Here we go. Like, let's just get this over with. And pretty much from the Atuesta goal on was the most flawless performance I've ever seen a Sounders team put up. And I really think it's one of the best single game performances in MLS history. Just what they did for the rest of that game. Rui Diaz, I believe, scored twice. Ladero scored the one to equalize it. I remember thinking when Ladero equalized it, all right, like, this is a 50-50 game. Like, if LAFC wins this, it's not going to be in some kind of blowout. Like, let's do it. And it was just a phenomenal win. And there's so many memories associated with that game, including the scene post game where LAFC fans, as they have been known to do sometimes, were hurling beer and other assorted objects onto the field, and Nuhu kicked one in midair, and a photographer snapped a photo of it. The famous photo of Nuhu kicking the beer can,
iconic,
flanked by video maestro Brian Babcock.
Babs.
Shout out Babs. And pretty much as soon as they won that game, I was like, all right, they're gonna win the MLS Cup now. I didn't really have a doubt in my mind. It was all about getting by that game. They also played the COVID year, and Seattle smashed on them. I don't think about that season all that much.
Yeah, that one didn't happen. That's not a real.
That was so weird. Just going to all those games in the empty ass stadiums. Rui Diaz did score a really sick goal in that game.
Yeah,
I believe. I remember that. So that's about all I remember from. I don't know what happened in MLS Cup that year.
I don't think there was an MLS Cup that year.
I think they canceled it. They didn't.
Yeah,
hold it.
I'm pretty sure.
But anyway, let's talk about this matchup as far as this year, because there's kind of similar vibes in that you've got this LAFC team that has just a very, at times, overpowering attack. They didn't put up as gaudy in numbers as that 2019 team did. In fact, they are the lower seed in the West, which is why they're traveling here for the game. So it's not like a situation where they were the Shield winners and had a plus 48. Again, LAFC, they had a bit of a tougher year this year. Okay, they like you said, they choked in Champions League. They were hungover for a while after that. But I mean, the thing I'll say is that down the stretch run of the season, they started to look more like mighty LAFC.
Yep.
And they didn't really do it consistently this year, but you see these games where they're hanging 4 and 5 goals on teams, and they can still do that. Denis Bouanga he's the Golden Boot winner, 20 goals, 7 assists this year.
My goat.
And that guy's a problem. Like,
that dude's nasty.
He's nasty. The thing is, you've got the statistical output, which is obviously quite gaudy, 27 goal contributions. But I don't know, with Bouanga, it's a lot of it is like psychological, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When he's running at you, that's the scariest sight in the league, and he is a lethal finisher. It's not going to be easy to stop him.
His goals are disgusting too. It's like
scores,
everyone is a highlight
bangers.
reel,
He
dude.
scores them
It's
from
like,
distance. He's wicked with it in the box.
Can we sign him?
That would have been a good swoop.
Can we just
Anyway, so basically that's who it all runs through. And I would say if there is something about this LAFC team that isn't as good as the 2019 team, it's that team was more well-rounded. I think they could hurt you in more multiple of ways. This LAFC team it's like, to a lesser extent, it's sort of like the Nashville SC effect of Hani Mukhtar bust. I'm not going to say that LAFC is Bouanga or bust, but if you can slow him down, it's not like they have 4 or 5 other guys that can hurt you like that. So it's really a lot of it is going to be about slowing him down. Obviously, Carlos Vela is still a factor. He had 9 and 12 this year, so he can still get it done. He's 34, but this team is all about Denis Bouanga. And they still have a strong supporting cast. Guys like Ilie Sanchez,
Sporting Kansas City legend.
Yeah, that's right. Kellen Acosta, Chiellini's holding it down in the back.
Old man.
Do they start Aaron Long? I don't know.
I don't know what's up with Alo though. Sounders legend though.
Yeah, he's a S2 legend. But one thing I'll say about that is you can get after this team on defense a little bit. Chiellini's he's still good, but he is not.
He's the best 40-year-old in the league.
Yeah, he's not a hyper elite CB anymore at this point in his career. I think his presence is a boost for them in that, he's just he's been doing it for so long. There's nothing in this game that he hasn't seen. So in terms of experience and leadership and all that, I think he does provide a lot for them, and it was a good signing. But he's not a defender I look at and I'm like, okay, it's going to be impossible to score a goal on him.
Yeah.
I think you can, Chiellini and Aaron Long, you can get after that a little bit. You can. You can score on them. So
the thing with him is that he does get away with cleaning people out just because he is 39 years old, and the refs are like, all right, guys, come on.
You're going to let this old man.
Yeah, you're going to let this old man take you like that. That is pretty sick.
No, but it's a primetime matchup. I'm looking forward to this. Like I said, LAFC, if they don't have the best attack in the league, there's a couple teams that you could put up with them. But when they're in form, they have one of the most lethal attacks, if not the most lethal attack in the league. And it's a strength on strength matchup because Seattle's strength is that they have in elite defense. So it's going to be fascinating to see the clash between those two things. And if there's something that I think works in Seattle's favor in this situation, it's that they have that elite defense that can theoretically match up with an attack this good and this dynamic. I mean, they're going to have to win this game, and I think they definitely can. It's possible. So, I mean, on the flip side of that, I do see a bit of a mismatch here in just the extent of LAFC's firepower compared to what Seattle has on offense. Seattle haven't really shown that ability that LAFC have to go nuclear and hang 4 or 5 goals on people. That's not really how they've been getting it done this year. They've been getting it done with the grinded out, 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, those type of score lines. They haven't done a heck of a lot of the we're just going to go off on you in attack and score 4 or 5 goals. So, I mean, to me, this game is just all about, can you hold LAFC to 1 goal? If you can hold LAFC to 1 goal, I like your chances. The moment you start talking about shipping 2 or 3 to them, it gets a lot harder because I still think this team has shown limitations on offense as far as their upside for these big multi-goal games that you kind of need in the playoffs sometimes. So those are both sides of it. I think the fact that they have an elite defense is, I mean, that's crucial against an opponent like this. And the question is going to be whether they can win that matchup and keep this scoreline to a place where, 2 goals will hopefully win you this game. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating to watch. I mean, if you haven't watched a lot of Denis Bouanga this year, I mean, you're gonna get the full experience. He's a menace. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Nuhu, Yamar, Jackson Reagan, Alex Roldan and company, JP, how Schmetz game plans it to try and slow them down. I do think that home field advantage is also big here. I wouldn't have said it was impossible if they had to travel to LA for this game, just because we've seen them do that before against a better LAFC team than this one is. But Seattle at home in the playoffs, typically money in the bank. But this is going to be their hardest game up until MLS Cup, because if you can get by LAFC here, you either have Houston Dynamo FC or Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts, in the West Final at home. You'd be hosting again. So those teams are both very good and in good form, but I rate LAFC quite a bit higher than I rate either of them, even with the knowledge that they're both pretty good. So if they you just got to get by LAFC, and you give yourself a great chance to make it to another MLS Cup. So,
as the great head football coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions once said, all you got to do is go 1-0.
Go 1-0.
All you got to do is go 1-0.
Mentality.
Exactly.
Do you have anything else on this LAFC game? Thoughts, feelings, predictions?
I mean, I'm nervous for sure. Like, I won't lie. I'm stoked though. Like, I think this is a fun matchup to get to see in the playoffs. Like, that's super sick. You want the most challenge. But yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. And like, I don't know. I think they can get it done, but like you're saying, I haven't really seen a large sample size of them bamming against, really intense competition, but this back line is soft, and we'll see. Should be a fun one.
They're gonna have revenge on the mind, bruh.
Yeah.
I don't think there's all that many guys on the team still that were on the team in 19. I mean, you got Carlos Vela. That's probably the main one, but that game was so like damaging to their like whole fan base.
Yeah.
I'll always remember I stepped outside the stadium after the game. I was walking to like an Uber or somewhere, and I see this LAFC fan who's just shit-faced drunk, and he's just stumbling around, and his girlfriend was like running after him, trying to track him down, and he just goes, "Man, fuck Seattle," and I thought I had a great time with that, just because I was pretty happy with how the game went, and seeing that man drunk and sad was pretty funny for me.
I mean, I won't lie, that was peak for me, just because 2019 LAFC fans wouldn't shut the fuck up about anything. They were God's gift to the earth. The MLS was, that was their prized child at the time before Messi and the Barca boys came along. So, I don't know. It's kind of fun to see LAFC get the Woody treatment, get thrown on the ground and not want to be played with anymore.
LAFC choking, I mean, we had a riot of a time with it when they choked in Champions League. It never really gets old, just because, like you said, of like, their fans, they feel themselves a lot, and like I don't even necessarily begrudge them that, in the sense that their team has backed it up in many ways.
For sure,
they've had some great individual regular seasons, and they won MLS Cup last year.
Yeah,
so I don't necessarily begrudge them the fact that they feel themselves sometimes, but what it does do is make it very, very funny and enjoyable when they choke.
Correct.
So. Hopefully we get another round of that, and Seattle can advance on through to the Western Conference Finals. Before we get into predictions for the rest of the bracket for the semifinal series, one little bit of Sounders news to hit for you, Noah. Stephen Fry, contract extension.
Yeah.
2-year deal, I believe, as reported by Sounder at Heart first. So that takes care of one of the questions that was on the docket for the offseason. Stephen Fry, his future wasn't certain. His contract was up. He's 38 now, and so I think with all the talk of the turnover that's come in, and Ladero already saying that he's out, there was I think there was a perception that Stephen Fry could be on the list of players that could be moving on after this season, and also kind of the way that he was talking about it. Actually, at one point, he gave an interview where he was like, I don't know what the future holds, and I kind of felt like he was saying, acknowledging that he might not be here. So Stephen Fry's coming back. I mean, I'm good with it. Like. There was takes flying around earlier this season. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah, we did. We potted about it.
We potted about it. Yeah, and I was saying that I didn't really see the supposed decline that people were talking about.
Yeah,
and I think having made it through the full regular season now, I feel pretty much the same way. I feel like Stephen Fry was pretty much as good as ever this year. I didn't notice, to my eye, any steep drop off or decline in production or decline in form. Goalkeepers are able to play into their late 30s and sometimes early 40s even.
It is also funny that those same people who were griping about that were then griping about the fact he didn't even get nominated for goalkeeper of the year, which is awesome.
That was a quick turnaround on that. But yeah, I mean, to me it looks like he is capable of maintaining his customary level, which is an elite goalkeeper in MLS, for 1 to 2 more years, which is the contract that they gave him.
Yeah.
I think we're probably looking at a situation where he's playing until he's 40.
Yeah.
Which is quite old for a professional athlete. But he's still doing it. He's still doing it. They had the statistically tied for the best defense in the league this year. And, I think the thing you have to look at is, is he still making those game-changing, game-saving saves? And the answer to that, especially down the stretch of the season, was yes.
Yeah.
He was making those saves, and that's what you need in your number one goalkeeper. So, and he's a club legend as well. MLS Cup MVP. He's put it in for the organization. So I think a just and fair reward for Stephen Fry.
Yeah, I think
2-year contract
yeah,
extension.
it's the perfect length of time. It allows him and the Sounders both to kind of transition. If he wants to retire with the Sounders, hell yeah, that rocks. Clearly he can put up another season, 2 seasons of continued ability. I don't know. Kind of was the perfect.
I will be interested to see
option.
if they bring in like a successor, or maybe they consider Steph Cleveland that. But Steph Cleveland, he's in the late 20s, so
yeah,
he's not really the profile of a guy that you might necessarily be like, okay, this is the future for the next 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they handle that. I think what they do at the number 2 spot is now actually not going to say backup goalkeeper's a significant storyline, but it's one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with Cleveland if they end up trying to ship him somewhere else.
He's pretty good. Like every time he's played when Fry has been out, I've actually been legitimately like more impressed than I thought I would be when Steph Cleveland plays. It's like
he had one really bad game this season, but other than that, he was really solid.
Like what I was surprised by is like when I think of a backup goalkeeper, I'm just hoping for a baseline of competence with the knowledge that they're not the starter, so you're probably not going to get like the game-saving spectacular saves to the degree that
unless
you
you're Alex Roldan,
right? Exactly, but like I don't really have the expectation that they're going to be making saves like that necessarily as much as the starter, but Steph Cleveland actually like he was making some of those, so that's one for the off season. We'll see how that pans out. Do you want to just jump into this bracket and then
let's hop in,
get the fuck out of here? Okay.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I guess let's start off with LA and Seattle. Where do you see this one going?
I've been going back and forth on this one quite a bit. I don't know about you. Yeah. I like when I was first thinking about it, I was honestly like, I don't really see how I can pick against LAFC just because of what I was talking about with when I'm looking at matchups like this, I always try and look at what mismatches I see and who has the most like pronounced advantage in a particular area of the game. And I do think that there's a pretty like if you're going off the season stats and how they performed on the stretch, there's definitely a gulf in like the type of goal production that these two teams have shown to be capable of putting up,
Yeah.
So my gut was saying LAFC just because of the advantage that I think they have in terms of firepower. On the flip side of that, you've got a Seattle team that has been not showing that much firepower, but definitely playing improved soccer in attack. I think it's fair to say that. And you do also have an elite defense. So trying to weigh all those things, I came to the conclusion that this is essentially it's more of a 50-50 toss-up than I was initially giving it credit for.
Yeah.
When you factor in the level that Seattle's defense is playing at right now and the improvements that they have shown in attack. And in a 50-50 toss-up scenario, I just picked the home team.
Yeah.
And so, like, straight up, the way I see it is with this game in Seattle, I'm going to pick Seattle. If this game was in LA, I would pick LA. But Seattle's hosting. I see it as a 50-50 toss. So I'm gonna pick Seattle. But I mean, I'll give the obvious caveat, which is that like I would not be surprised if that pick doesn't hit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's a big part of me that thinks LAFC is probably gonna win.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm not super confident, but I'm also not completely turned off by the whole idea of the Sounders taking that one and running with it. I think they have some momentum coming out of that FC Dallas game. Like, I don't know. It is really a toss up. It's a coin flip. Like, I could see that one going to penalties pretty easily.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty decently likely outcome as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'll pick Seattle as well because I agree. I think that home field advantage just gives you just enough to get over the edge. But honestly, I think either of these teams could win very evenly and would not be shocked if LAFC comes here and just beats the doors down.
I mean, whoever wins this is the favorite to come out of the West.
Yeah, easily.
So there's obviously a lot on the line regardless because with it being a playoff game, semifinals game, but whoever wins this is going to be set up nice. They're going to be hosting a Western Conference final. So,
yeah, which that Western Conference final would be either against Houston or Sporting Kansas City. So, what are we thinking on those two?
Yeah, I've got Sporting Kansas City, the club of professional wrestling enthusiasts. I just think they're probably in the best like form of any individual team in the West right now. All of these teams are in pretty good form right now, obviously, to get to this point. But I mean, we've talked about it. Sporting Kansas City since May, they've been one of the best teams in the league. They waxed St. Louis City SC, which you can debate how impressive an accomplishment that was, given the fraudulent tendencies demonstrated by St. Louis City SC. But I mean, they were lights out in that series. It's a tough one to pick because Houston also, I mean, they've been playing really well down the stretch and into the playoffs. And I think they were rightfully tabbed as kind of a dark horse contender.
Yeah.
So it's another one that I feel like, all of these at this point in the playoffs, they're 50-50 propositions and there's not like a super, super obvious favorite. But I just think Sporting KC's pretty hot right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I also have Sporting with the caveat too that like that's impressive because Houston hasn't lost at home in 10 games. And obviously they're playing in Houston. But Sporting haven't lost in 5 games. We just watched Houston struggle against Salt Lake and have to troll for penalties twice in a row.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what happened to that firepower that we saw, that insane Houston attack that we saw during the regular season. Maybe they pick it up against Sporting. Maybe they don't. But Sporting is showing clearly that they can finish, that they can create on almost every opportunity that they have. And as fraudulent as St. Louis City is, that was still an impressive result on the road. And also an impressive result at home as well. Holding them to only 2 goals in the series is impressive considering what they were putting up, even if they were lucky.
It's a good point. Houston really didn't look that good in the Salt Lake series.
No, they looked terrible.
They struggled with that. They struggled with Pablo Mastrione's expected dog.
Which, like, maybe it'll be different because it almost felt like Salt Lake was trying to troll for those penalties and trying to just, like, slow down the play and break up the way that Houston was trying to play. But, I mean, Sporting is fearless, and I think that is something to fear. So that's my pick for that, which would set up what we both agree, professional wrestlers versus Seattle in the Western Conference Final. Back to a real conference, the Eastern Conference, because fraudulent Western Conference aside, Cincy, Philly, probably the two favorites. Or
Well,
last year's finalist.
Yeah,
and
I'm taking Cincy here pretty comfortably, which I realize isn't that hot a take given that they won the Shield and are the odds-on MLS Cup favorites. But the Philly Union, they're really not like the vintage Philly Union. Really, they weren't for pretty much the whole season, and they haven't looked as such in the playoffs really either. They could have lost their series to the Revs. They just don't. I don't know. They don't have the same kind of full throttle type of vibe that they had in last year's playoffs when they mobbed all the way to MLS Cup and almost beat LAFC. Like, people forget, but the Philly Union, they played that game straight up and they almost won it. They just they haven't looked on that level pretty much all year. Since he's the best team in the league for my money, playing at TQL, I mean, you got to think they get that done. That's a pretty easy pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the easiest pick of the week there. I think Cincy is just disgusting, and playing at home where they are. I mean, they have to be favored.
I wouldn't put it past Jim Curtin's boys necessarily, but I'd be pretty surprised if Philly wins that game, to be honest. That's probably the game out of all these that I feel most confident about.
Yeah, and the two that they played this season, Cincy took one and then they drew the other. So I think it's going to be a really good matchup. But playoff, TQL Stadium, it gets loud in there. Cincy fans are stoked to have a real team. I'm just saying
they deserve it. I'm happy for them.
I agree.
Like 3 wooden spoons in a row, and then it's such a crazy switch to go from 3 wooden spoons in a row to having a team that's that good. I mean, they're the best team in the league. So.
Yeah, easily. So no, I agree with that. Cincy on their way to a Eastern Conference final against one of these two, Orlando or Columbus, which I know we wanted this matchup to happen.
This is a good match. This is going to be a good matchup, and I'm more back to having no real idea who to pick. Out of these two, I think I'm gonna go with Orlando City SC, which might be counterintuitive. Okay, I mean, they're the higher seed,
correct?
But Columbus has been a trendier pick.
Yes,
Columbus are kind of a pundit darling, and I get it. I really enjoy watching the Crew too. Like, I think they have stretches of some of the most aesthetically pleasing soccer that anyone plays in the league. But the reason I don't think the Crew are going to win MLS Cup is that, this was confirmed in the series that they just had against Atlanta United, but they have too many like Atlanta United type vibes.
Yeah.
Where they can carve you up and they can score on you, but a lot of the times it's at the expense of protecting their own goal. And that's what happened in the Atlanta series. They got waxed in Atlanta in match 2 of that series. And then even in match 3, they went up like 4-0.
It was 4-0.
4-0. And then they let Atlanta score a couple goals. So there's just too much like stuff like that where
or 3-0, sorry. But
3-0 and then 4-1. Was that
it? Was 3-0, 3-1, and then 4-1 and then 4-2, which was
they were letting Atlanta like hang around in a game where they had a 3-goal lead like way longer than they should have, and it all plays into this overarching tendency that they've had throughout the year to ship goals, sometimes a lot of goals in a game, shipping them at inopportune times. They're just they're a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team in that way. And I just think Orlando is a much more sound team in that way. Like, Orlando is almost like a version of Columbus that just doesn't have those kind of anarchy type vibes on defense. Except, Orlando isn't as dynamic in attack. But Orlando, they play some good attacking ball as well. Like, they really do. Oscar Pereira's done a pretty damn good job.
FC Dallas legend.
FC Dallas legend Oscar Pereira. Good coach, I think.
Great coach.
It's more than fair to say at this point. Still a little underrated, even though he's gotten a fair amount of credit over the years for the work that he's done with FC Dallas and now Orlando. So
when FC Dallas, when he was lured away by Orlando, I was like, this is a switch for Orlando. This is going to be a good thing.
It's a good hire.
Yeah.
And they've been one of the better teams in the East this year. So I'm taking Orlando there, but
right.
I could definitely the Crew when they're firing and they're scoring goals, like, they can beat anybody.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised to see that one go the other way, but I'm feeling Orlando.
Yeah, I think an Orlando pick is a really good pick. I'm going to have my pick at the end here. I just want to toss some stats around there. Orlando haven't lost in 7 matches, and they've won their last 6. And they are unbeaten in 14 home games. So
feels like they should have been getting talked about a little more as like a legitimate contender. I feel like they were not necessarily discussed as, like, Columbus got discussed way more.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's partially due to the other Florida team, little overshadowing in the region.
Yeah, could
perhaps. But honestly, it's Orlando's game to lose, which I think sometimes can be a big weight. I want to pick Orlando, but I also want to be a little bit contrarian, so we don't have all of the same picks here. So I'm going to go with Columbus.
Columbus is a good pick.
I think that they are a goal-scoring machine, and if they get dug into a hole, I don't think that it's over for them. Like, if Orlando comes out and scores 1 or 2, I don't think that that's insurmountable for the Crew to come back from. So that is my whole reason for that. But man, I mean, unbeaten in 14 home games, and you're playing at Exploria Stadium. That's a tough one to go into.
Cucho Hernandez, one of the best players in the league. Wilfred Nancy might be the best coach in the league.
Yeah,
like, he might be.
I think you were trying to talk yourself into a Wilfred Nancy Coach of the Year take.
I think
in
I was.
Previous episodes.
I think I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were talking about it, I think, before the playoffs started, just how good a job he did with CF Montreal and how it's been kind of cool to see him get his hands on like an expensive, shiny roster with all these Lamborghinis and Ferraris, like Cucho and Diego Rossi. Darlington Nagby's still doing it for them.
Yeah.
So good roster, good team, and that I think that's probably the game I'm looking forward to the most, aside from Seattle LAFC, because that's a clash of two of the top teams in the East for sure.
Yeah, that's a Titan matchup. That one is going to be sick. I know that like 2 episodes ago we talked about how that was like we both wanted that to happen. So that will be appointment television, folks.
All right, we'll see how those picks pan out. I think I went perfect. I think I went perfect on the right one.
Yeah, I think you did. You did.
I'm low key pretty proud of that. You know, there was some obvious ones, but there were a couple where I had to maybe go against the grain of what the mainstream pundits were picking. So
you said Sporting was going to bam on St. Louis, and I
said it, and their fans,
is impressive.
Their fans got upset about it, and that's what happened. So.
They did, but I'm here to say, vindicated. vindicated.
All right. Well, unless you have anything else, I think we can call it a wrap right there for episode 19.
Yeah, I think that's it. Sounders, if you want to send us some shoes, I wear a size 11.5, so, toss those our way.
Good plug. We've got a little bit of a break between now and in the first game. I don't know about you. I'm going out of town for Thanksgiving starting on Sunday, so we may or may not throw down another one of these before the match is played, but if not, we will most certainly be reacting to whatever takes place at Lumen Field on November 26th.
Yeah.
So
are you going to be at that game?
Yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming back.
Yeah, I'll be there too. So.
There was like a time period when the schedule came out where I was like, bro, that is so close to Thanksgiving.
Oh, it's
like
so
if Seattle
brutal.
makes it that far, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go to that.
It's so
but I
brutal.
wrangled my travel plans, so I'll be back for the game. I wouldn't miss it.
No.
And then we will certainly lay down some of this sweet audio once that result is decided.
Yeah. If Sounders make the cup, we traveling? We live potting from the.
Yeah, I mean I'm going for show.
All right,
if they make it,
I'm in too. I got them airline miles. Let's make it happen.
We're gonna call it right there. Thank you as always for tuning in. Like, rate, comment, subscribe, write your iTunes reviews, hit us up on Twitter. Until next time, we out.
Peace.